Hello everyone and welcome to another card making video. Today I'm focusing on my Painters palette die set from my latest release for Spellbinders, and I'm going to share a few ideas on how you can use that. This is the die from the set that I'm focusing on, and I will be using this die cut on all my cards. I did cut out two of those palettes since I'm going for a shaped card. However, keep in mind that this palette is specifically designed to fit on a standard card that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. You can place one on top of the other and start thinking which way you want your card to open. So you can have a portrait or a landscape palette card. So here I have decided on my orientation, and now I'm using one of those die cut pieces and my scoring board to create a fold line at the top. It doesn't really matter at this stage how big that flap is going to be, as long as you can stick those pieces together. You need to add some adhesive on that flap. I'm going to use my tape roller here, but you can definitely go with something stronger if you like. And I can align my two shapes one on top of the other, and you can see how that card works. Now, in the same die set you will be able to find dies that help you create a paintbrush, as well as lots of blobs for paint and a paint tube. So for this card I'm going to go ahead and do my die cutting. I did cut out lots of blobs of paint, and I did use white for the little detail. This is going to give kind of a shine on all those blobs. I cut out each one of those shapes twice, once out of white cardstock and another time out of the colored cardstock. And let's put together the paint brushes. I'm going with two paint brushes for this design. The theme on all these cards is going to be clean and simple looking, with pretty much the same little details, the same look and feel. So you can definitely put them together as a set and hand them out as a gift to someone. Now, as you can see, to put together the brushes is super easy. They consist of three parts: the bristles, which I die cut from white cardstock, the ferrule, which I die cut from golden cardstock, and then the handle, which I used craft cardstock for that. Now, as a fun detail, I did die cut the bristles one more time using two different colors of cardstock, and at the bottom I'm creating a little wave. And if you stick those pieces on top of your paint brushes, they are going to look as if they have a little bit of paint at the tip. Now, the way I want to use those brushes is to tuck them inside the hole of the palette. This way, when you open up the palette, you will be able to see the back of the brushes. And just because a card is all about the details, I just had to create an extra paintbrush for the back. The handle is symmetrical, so you can easily create an extra handle, stick it at the back to cover up the ugly parts, and now the brush looks beautiful front and back. And of course I will repeat the same process on the other paintbrush, and I did die cut the little color for the tips of the paintbrushes, so I have that detail front and back as well. Keep in mind you don't have to do that if it doesn't bother you. However, little details like that can drive me crazy when it comes to card making. I need all the details to be perfect. That's why I just had to take care of that little detail. Now I'm going to place those brushes inside the hole, and I'm going to move them around until I'm happy with the placement. One thing that you can do is to bring in an envelope. Place that on top and make sure that the way you place those brushes are going to fit inside the envelope. So I secured my paint brushes, and now I'm placing the blobs all around the palette, trying to decide where everything is going to go, and then I'm going to stick them down. One way you can go is to use foam tape at the back. These are quite dimensional, however, since they are two layers of cardstock, so I decided not to use foam squares for this design, and I'm just gluing them down with my glue. I used one of the sentiments from my stamp set, and now one thing that you can do extra on this card is to use glossy accents on all those blobs of color. It's going to give some shine on it. You can either go with Wink of Stella. I'm not going to do that for this card since I want to keep it clean and simple, but it is definitely a great idea. By the way, this is the stamp set that I have designed. It comes with lots of sentiments that really complement this shaped card. And now you can definitely stop here and call it done, but if you want you can embellish it a little bit more with flowers and leaves. I did cut out flowers and leaves from this set, and this is my Painted Blooms die set. I created a flower which is white, since I didn't want to introduce any new color and make it look busy. However, the center of the flower is made out of golden cardstock, just like the leaves, and I like to have those little details matching together with the ferrule of the brushes. So I'm just tucking underneath the flower those little leaves, and I'm going to call my first card done. Of course, another variation would be to use really bright colors instead of the pastel ones, which is going to give a completely different look and feel on your card. So let's create this variation. This time I'm using pattern paper in bright colors, and instead of using those blobs, I'm going to replace them by using a butterfly. This butterfly comes from the Butterfly Burst die set. Just because that was pattern paper, I was able to cut out 3 butterflies with one passing. I also cut out the bodies for my butterflies out of golden cardstock, and I used vellum for the second layer of detail for my butterfly. Then I'm going to put together one butterfly so you can see how easy it is. I'm just adding glue at the center of that layered detail, and I'm going to glue that on top, making sure that I keep some dimension on the top layer. At the center I'm going to stick the body, and my first butterfly is ready. Now I can go ahead and put together all the butterflies, and I can start sticking the butterflies around my palette. The idea of this video is to help you be more creative and use the same idea in variations. So in the first card I did use the paint blobs. This time I'm replacing the paint blobs with butterflies, and I'm using a more colorful palette. And in the third card you will see that I will replace those with flowers. And if you can think of other little elements that we all have in our stash and we can use them to replace the blobs, let me know in the comments below. This way when we read the comments we can inspire each other. I used foam tape to place the palette on top of my card base, which I went with a pale color. And then I already gold embossed my sentiment. Again, it comes from my sentiment stamp set. I layered it with some golden cardstock, and I'm going to place it at the center. By the way, I used wood grain cardstock to cut out the palette, so it has a lovely embossed detail on top of it. And let's move on to the third card. Again, same concept. I'm using this time flowers instead of paint blobs. I went again with a pale color palette, but you can definitely go bright and colorful. Now here is a little tip. When I want to have lots and lots of leaves, instead of die cutting the same identical leaf tons of times, back and forth in my die cutting machine, I just die cut a poinsettia. This is a poinsettia from my winter birdhouse collection. And I just separate all the leaves then. I find it is super easy to do that, and it's really quick. You get 5 of those leaves with one passing. And by now you already know the card design that we are following on all these 3 cards. I'm going around the palette and I'm sticking down the flowers instead of paint blobs. I'm not following rainbow order, I'm just sticking the flowers completely randomly, and then I'm going to embellish them by using the golden leaves that I have already die cut. For my sentiment I went with You Color Me Happy, again from the same sentiment stamp set. I did emboss it with gold embossing powder, and I did die cut an identical golden circle so that I can offset one on top of the other to have a little bit of shine peeking through. I'm going to use some foam tape and stick it on top of my palette, and then the whole palette with foam tape is going on top of my card base, which I created with vanilla cardstock. And that's the third card for today, using pretty much the same design. Here are all the 3 cards together. You can see that they have the same look and feel. This way I can make a set out of them and hand them as a gift. And I find that these designs are really versatile, so you can switch sentiments and make them work for any occasion. And don't forget that you get a paint tube in this die set that we haven't even touched for our designs today. And I promise I will come back with more ideas on using this set. My collection is available worldwide and you can find it wherever you usually shop your Spellbinders dies. Below in the description you will find some links. Thank you all so much for joining me today and I hope you'll all have a lovely weekend.